Hey everyone, Mitch coming in for the Chimera's Course Studio. Welcome to the show. So, if you haven't seen my most recent episode on Sardine Avenger, make sure you check it out at some point because, yeah, this is a very, very exciting card. One that definitely is going to have a lot of players very happy to see. And yeah, make sure you check it out. But do not leave just yet because this card has me saying no for kind of like the exact opposite reason from the last episode. In a way, you have to see that one to know what I'm talking about. But don't leave. Play Meti. Let's jump into it. Okay, here we go. Meticulous Excavation is an enchantment for a single white mana, so very low to the ground enchantment, and it has pay 2 and a white. Return target permanent you control to its owner's hand. If it has Unearth instead, exile it. Then return that card to its owner's hand. Activate only during your turn. So this card has a ton of applications. This card is a very low to the ground enchantment again. You get it down early, you get it down often. You can utilize it in a lot of different ways to give you a ton of value throughout the game. And sometimes, and why I'm saying no on this, an absurd amount of value. In fact, an amount of value that can't be calculated because, yeah, there are certain cards, one in particular, and why I'm saying no, that may or may not combo with this because, yeah, this card has an absurd amount of combo potential because it is a repeatable effect that can literally target any permanent that you have. Now, only at sorcery speed, but most of the the combos that you're going to utilize with this anyways would be at sorcery speed. You're probably going to be doing things on your turn. We'll talk about why. But yeah, I mean, there is a nice little clause in there about Unearth, which is they definitely could have worded this in a different way to just make it work overall. So this kind of sounds a bit clunky. It's like, hey, if it has Unearth, do this instead. But like, it's nice that, it does, just work this way because, hey, if you want to utilize an Unearth card again, you can. You Unearth it, you utilize it. Normally you'd lose it at the end of your turn, but instead with Unearth, with this, you're like, hey, okay, I'm going to basically bounce it back to my hand. Now it like exiles it first, then returns it because Unearth cards get exiled anyways. So mechanically it has to work that way. Now I'm blabbering on about this. That's not the point. The point is that this combos with one very specific card that has been a terror in the format for quite some time, and it's obnoxious. And here we go. Here we go, everyone's favorite Docside extortionist. Yay, Docside combos with another card, great! Anyways, a 1/2 Goblin Pirate that costs 1 and a red. It says when it enters the battlefield, create X treasure tokens or X the number of artifacts and enchantments your opponents control. That is an absurd effect. This is, yeah, I mean, overpowered is to say it lightly, I'm sure, because, hey, yeah, I just play this 2-mana creature. Oh, I'm playing a multiplayer game with 3 other players? And yeah, I mean, if they don't have green, they probably need to utilize, mana rocks and things like that. And sure, they'll have some enchantments around. And yeah, I mean, other artifacts, like other artifact creatures, maybe they made some, mirror tokens with their mirror battlesphere. Cool, I'll just get this down, get 20 treasure tokens for 2 mana because that's a thing. So, yeah, and now with that, again, with this, brand new card, Meticulous Excavation, being a repeatable effect, and it just costs 3 mana, you can just say, okay, well, with 3 of those treasure tokens, I will sacrifice those. I'll get 1 white mana and 2 of whatever else. I don't really care. I'll bounce Docside Extortionist back to my hand, and then with 2 of the other treasure tokens, I will sacrifice those 2. I'll get a red and whatever else, and I'll play the Docside Extortionist again, and I'll get 20 more treasure tokens. Then I'll just do this as many times as I want. I'll make an absurd amount of treasure tokens to the point where it doesn't matter, and then I'll just win in a wide variety of ways because I have infinite mana, infinite treasure tokens. I have infinite ATBs of whatever else I want. Again, Meticulous Excavation, you can just keep activating for other things too. So even if you just say you have, I don't even know, a creature that like comes into play and like pings something for 1 or whatever, sure, just bounce that back to your hand, recast it an infinite number of times, you win. Yeah, Dockside Extortionist is just too easy. But yeah, I mean, and the bar for this is quite low. Again, I did just say, if, your opponents have 20 total, artifacts and enchantments, in order to just go infinite with Meticulous Excavation, you would need 6. They would have to have a total of 6 artifacts and enchantments between them. That is an average of 2 per person. that easily can be met throughout the game. That is going to be pretty easy for that to happen, for you to get 6 treasures out of Dockside. So this is quite the combo with it. Now, this is not the first card that, Dockside has ever comboed with. I mean, Teamer Sabertooth, I probably should have brought that up with Meticulous Excavation, is a very, very, very comparable card to it. One that just bounces creatures for 1 mana less, essentially, 1 and a green. But yeah, Meticulous Excavation is also pretty hard to deal with. Teamer Sabertooth can make, itself indestructible, essentially. But Meticulous Excavation is an enchantment, which is probably the hardest permanent type to actually deal with in a format. So yeah, it can be a resilient piece of a combo that can really stick around and can be hard to deal with. And again, there are plenty of ways to combo with it because, again, bounce any permanent. Again, the limitation is you can only activate during your turn. But is that really all that much of a limitation when most of the combos that you'd be utilizing it with are going to be on your turn? Next up, when it comes to comboing with it, another card that can definitely combo with it is like a Village Bellringer. It has flash when it enters the battlefield, untap all creatures you control. So if you've got mana dorks in play that essentially can tap for a total of 6 mana overall, yep, that's a combo right there too. I guess 2 that mana has to be, white, but still, that's a combo as well. So, okay, I guess my math was slightly off. Yes, you can just do that over and over again, but you wouldn't be netting any mana. You wouldn't be going infinite with it. You're getting infinite ETBs and whatnot, so if you have an Impact Tremors in play, yeah, you win with that. But yeah, if you have 7 mana from your mana dorks, there we go. Then you get an extra mana, and yeah, you just get infinite mana essentially at that point. And there are plenty of ways to win from there. Even, ETBs that just untap one thing can help you out as well, like a Deceiver Exarch or a, Quarter Monitor. Deceiver Exarch has flash when enters the battlefield, choose 1, untap target permanent you control or tap target permanent opponent controls. So yeah, just untap your permanent, whichever that, kind of permanent that is tapping for that amount of mana that you need. Again, in this case, it would be 7, and yeah, we'll talk about a couple here in a bit that can do that. You just have to untap that, and you can do it again and again and again and again. And yeah, plenty of ways to win with that. Quarter Monitor enters the battlefield, untap target artifact or creature you control. Generally, that would be what you need to untap anyways. And of course, with this one just costs 2 mana. So again, you would need 6 mana to go infinite and get infinite mana, etc., etc. Now, when it comes to creatures that can pretty easily combo with this, again, when you have one of those ETB untap, effects, Sanctum Weaver, Here in Blade Elite, Selvala come to mind. Thank goodness this isn't in green. But yeah, Sanctum Weaver has tap, add X mana of any one color, X the number of enchantments you control. So that is an easy infinite mana combo for, an enchantment tribal deck because, again, this card is an enchantment. So even with just this, and that in play, it's already tapping for 2. So you are, nearly there. You got some more enchantments to get on play. But if you're doing enchantment tribal, you already have a ton in play. We'll talk about a commander here in a bit that can definitely utilize that in that way. Here in Blade Elite has Vigilance, and whenever another human enters the battlefield under control, put a counter on Here in Blade Elite. Tap for X mana of any one color. X is Here in Blade Elite's power. Now, obviously, if you've got a human tribal deck, that's one way to get this, much larger. Another way is simply just attach an equipment to it that makes it massive. There are plenty of equipment that do that, like a Black Blader Forge or whatnot. But yeah, once you're just tapping for, a certain amount of mana, you can go infinite once you've got yourself set up. Selvala. Oh, gross. Whenever another creature enters battlefield under its owner's control, they may draw a card. If its power is greater than each other creature's power, pay a green, tap, add X mana any combination of colors where X the greatest powering creatures you control. So yeah, massive creatures, getting them out, getting a ton of mana, getting that one, untapped creature, going with that. Have fun. And also, this is a draw engine too, so once you have that infinite mana, obviously you can just bounce whatever, your biggest creature is, as long as it's, bigger than your opponent's creatures, and just keep getting it back into play, drawing your entire library essentially, and there are plenty of ways to win once you're set up like that. Or how about some artifacts that can help you out, like, Empowered Auto Generator. It enters battlefield, tapped, you can tap, put a charge counter on it, add X mana of any one color, X the number of charge counters on Empowered Auto Generator. So the more and more that you tap this, the more counters it gets on it, and the more mana it can produce. Yeah, if you are able to get to a certain point, obviously, and you're set up properly, you can go infinite. Nyx Lotus, a bit more specific, enters battlefield, tap, choose a color, add an amount of mana equal to your devotion to that color. So yeah, if you're in a specific deck that has, that amount of devotion that is going to work with this to be able to tap for a ton of mana, that could work as well. In a somewhat similar way, obviously there's Nykthos Shrine to Nyx, which basically does the exact same thing in a way. It's a land that can tap for colors, pay 2, tap, choose a color, add to your mana pool, an amount of mana of that color equal to devotion to that color. So yeah, if you've got a way to untap even a land like this one, you can go infinite in that way too. And actually, with Nykthos in particular, keep in mind that, again, this brand new card, Meticulous Excavation, you can just bounce Nykthos back to your hand and then replay it. I mean, as your land for turn. But yeah, let's say, you're utilizing this and basically you're netting like, 10 mana when you do it. Use 3 of that mana, bounce it back to your hand, get it back into play as your land for a turn, use 2 of that mana to tap it again, and then, yeah, you just added 10 more mana onto that. So it's kind of like tapping for 15 in a turn instead of, just 10 or whatever. I mean, just 10, but a ton. So yeah, there are definitely, blinking interactions that you can utilize with that. Keep in mind kind of with those creatures too, and I probably should have mentioned this, like the Sanctum Weaver, the Hero Blade of Late, those... If you can give them haste, maybe if you've got, Concordant Crossroads, which I think just got reprinted actually a little bit ago or whatnot, or was in like a secret layer or whatnot, so its price might have been down a little bit. But yeah, or more so, any other effect that gives your creatures, haste, maybe with a Lightning Greaves or whatnot, or a Swiftfoot Boots, you can just re-equip, give them haste, tap them again for mana, bounce them back to your hand, get them back out into play, re-equip, tap them. There are plenty of ways to go infinite in these kinds of patterns. So yeah, the fact that it allows you to bounce any permanent back to your hand is pretty crazy. And of course, the list of the combos can go on and on and on what kind of works with this. Again, when you have something that can repeatedly bounce any permanent, there are plenty of avenues to victory with this. I mean, Peregrine Drake, yeah, that combos with a lot of things. Enters the battlefield untapped to 5 lands. Now, that doesn't just combo on its own, unless those 5 lands... If those 5 lands are bounce lands, yes, it does. It does combo with that because... Well, I mean, you untap your bounce lands, they're tapping for 2 each, essentially that's 10 mana. And yeah, you can just, utilize, 8 of that mana essentially to bounce this back to your hand, replay it, and just, keep netting mana. Obviously, an easier avenue to that, though, is probably just like a mana doubler, like Mana Reflection. If you tap a permanent for mana, it produces twice as much of that mana instead. So yeah, basically, again, any of your lands essentially are tapping for 2 now. You tap 5 of them for, 10 mana in total. You bounce your Peregrine Drake back to your hand. You replay it. It untaps those lands. Tap them again. You're just going to be able to repeat this again and again and again. Again, plenty of avenues to victory when you are going about it with this because, again, it can bounce any permanent, which is pretty crazy. Now, again, you don't have to combo with this. It can also just be utilized, just for, normal, hey, I'd like to, bounce it back to my hand so I can just use this ETB again. Great. I'd like to, just... bounce this back to my hand because it's going to get taken out in combat, or maybe an opponent tried to take out, maybe my commander on my turn if I was trying to do something, so I can bounce it back to my hand to protect it. It doesn't say activate at sorcery speed, it just says activate only on your turn. So yeah, you can still do it in response to something as if it's just on your turn. But now let's talk about some commanders that might want to consider this card. And yeah, thank you, Eddie, for bringing this one up. Zirda, the Dawnwaker. Definitely a card that can work well with it, whether it's, the companion for the deck or the commander or just in the 99 of the deck. Abilities you activate that aren't mana abilities cost 2 less to activate. This effect can't reduce the mana and that costs you less than 1 mana. So again, Meticulous Excavation, has a cost of 2 and a white for the activation. Zirda takes out that generic cost, essentially. Zirda says, hey, that's free. Just pay the single white mana and you can do this, which of course makes comboing with it a lot easier because, well, you have a less, a lower threshold essentially to do so. And of course just makes it much more efficient whenever you're trying to utilize it for essentially anything. But a commander that can actually just combo with it itself is the Combo Primal Calamity. This commander is pretty fantastic. A 9/9 Vigilance, Reach, Trample, Elder Dinosaur that says when enters the battlefield, if you cast it, untap all lands you control. So yeah, I mean, this is quite simple. Essentially, all you need, I mean, and I say all you need, but I mean, it is a lot of mana, I will give you that. But if you're in a Zakama deck, yeah, you're going to be ramping a ton. You are in green. You can ramp a ton and easily get to this amount of mana that you need. If you get, 13 mana, that is infinite mana, essentially. Just, that's all you need. You have 13 mana out of your lands. Cool. You've got infinite mana with this commander because all you need to do is cast this for 9 while floating 4 mana with your extra lands or whatnot. Use 3 of that extra mana to, use Meticulous Excavation to bounce a comma back to your hand. You've got 1 extra mana, and then, yeah, just do it again and again and again, because every single time you're doing this, you're untapping your lands, you're gaining a mana. You have infinite mana, and cool, you know what Zakama can also do? Well, you can activate all those abilities as many times as you want, so deal 3 damage to every single one of your opponent's creatures infinite number of times, or however many times it takes to, take them out, destroy all their artifacts, enchantments, gain infinite life, and yeah, there are plenty of other ways to win from there. Bounce any of your other creatures back to your hand, or other permanents back to your hand that have ETBs that you can use and abuse. Have fun. Another one, though, that Eddie brought up is Sit This Harvest Hand. Yeah, Eddie's Sit This deck can get even better with this card. A 1/2 nymph that has, whenever you cast an enchantment spell, you gain 1 life and draw a card. Again, this Excavation is a 1-mana enchantment spell, so this is just incredible in this deck. Hey, here's a 1-mana cantrip. Great. You gain a life, draw a card. And also, yeah, you can also just bounce your other enchantments back to your hand for even more value. You're obviously going to have even more Enchantresses in a deck like this. So, yeah, you can bounce an enchantment back to your hand, replay it, probably for really cheap. And then, yeah, just draw a ton of cards, get a ton of value. You can get a lot out of this in this kind of a deck. And like I mentioned, I mean, probably very easily go infinite with Sanctum Weaver. I mean, probably even accidentally just go infinite with Sanctum Weaver in that kind of a deck. You're probably not even intending to, build a combo into that deck, but Sanctum Weaver is so good in that deck, because again, it taps for X mana and any 1 color X number enchantments you control. And yeah, as long as you've got like a Lightning Greaves in that deck, or, a Swift of Boots, or any way to give that Sanctum Weaver haste, you're easily going to get to the number of enchantments that you need to just go infinite with that. So, and when you do that, obviously, you can just draw your entire library with Sit This, and plenty of ways to win from there. Another thing to keep in mind is maybe like a Satsuki the Living Lore deck. Yeah, I mean, this new card can help reset sagas, essentially. Satsuki says, tap a lore counter on each saga you control, activating sorcery. When Satsuki dies, choose 1, return target saga, enchantment, or creature you control to its owner's hand. Return target saga card from your graveyard to your hand. So basically, yeah, hey, this is a brand new enchantment that can help you bounce your sagas back to your hand before they're going to, be going to the graveyard. So utilize them again, get more value out of your sagas. Yeah, I definitely think Satsuki decks are going to want to consider this one. But now this episode is coming to a close. It's time for me to give you my final thoughts on Meticulous Excavation. Yeah, I mean, this card can definitely do some really interesting things and very unique things. And I think, the one thing that makes me really say no is just Docside just doesn't need another avenue for an infinite combo. So, I mean, this might, maybe isn't the problem. It's more so Docside is the problem. But actually, if you haven't seen my previous episode, I talked about a card that can actually punish players that might be using and abusing, something like that. So yeah, make sure you check that one out. But I do think that this definitely has a place in a lot of decks out there. A lot of decks are going to want to consider this one. They can do some pretty crazy things. You can also do some very, value-centric things. So yeah, Meticulous Excavation, definitely a very interesting card. And yeah, make sure you check out my other exciting quick takes and spoilers I've talked about. And yeah, this has been a very, very interesting and exciting spoiler season. And with that, the show is coming to a close, so it's my turn to hear from you. So in the comments below, let me know what your thoughts on this episode are, and as always, thanks again and have a good one. This show and episodes like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. If you're looking for an easy way to help support this show, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Also, hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss any new episodes. You can also go check out our playmats and other merchandise at thecommandersquarters.com. We also have a ton of brand new t-shirt designs in stock, so make sure you check out those as well. Another easy way to support this show is with our TCG Player affiliate links. So whether you're buying a deck or individual cards, you can use this general link right here or one in the description. And the final way that you can support this show is by supporting us directly by becoming a patron. There are many benefits to being a patron, and I truly couldn't do this without all of their support.